Hi, it's Shelly and welcome to my channel. What are we doing today? If you're planning to move to Mexico or to come for a longer term stay, there are a few things you should be aware of. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Call them cultural differences, Mexico hacks, or whatever you want, however you want to describe them. There are things you're going to encounter in Mexico that you may or may not be aware of. Oh, I would also like to take a second and thank Tony for buying me a coffee. The generosity of people like Tony enable me to bring more videos to all of you. So click the link in the description below if you want to buy me a coffee. Thanks, Tony. Oh, and by the way, if you do buy me a coffee, I will do a shout out to you. But if you don't see it in my next video, don't think I've forgotten about you. Sometimes my videos, I do them a couple of weeks in advance, but I will certainly give you a shout out. And I just want to say that I appreciate all my subscribers and your support. So, okay, let's get started with the video. Normally, we jump into conversations or written communications right off by talking, asking, or stating what we want or need. In Mexico, this is considered, well, kind of rude. You should always begin a conversation, either in writing or in person, with a greeting. Either hola, buenos dias, buenas tardes, buenas noches, or ¿cómo estás? How are you? And then you wait for them to respond before continuing with your conversation. This is just considered common courtesy in Mexico, and we're just not used to that in our home countries. This simple greeting sets a tone for the conversation and shows the person that you're communicating with that they have your respect. Have you ever noticed that Mexican people have a hard time saying no? Especially to us as foreigners. They feel like it's rude to say no. So they may just say yes, agree with you, or answer in the positive, but with no real definite time frame. Mexicans are very courteous, which to them means contradicting as little as possible. The difficulty with saying no outright comes from a long history back to colonial times when the servant was not allowed to say no. Being ambiguous or delaying resolution is not meant as anything against you personally. In fact, it's the complete opposite. They don't want to offend you by coming right out and saying no. So if you're faced with a situation where someone is going to call you later or can't do it now, but will do it another day, chances are they're saying no in what they perceive to be a courteous manner. Better to move on and find someone else. Okay, so Mexicans are very expressive, and you may have seen some hand gestures that you don't quite know what they mean. I'm going to explain just a few here just to show you that what you think they are saying might be completely different than what they are actually saying. For example, have you ever waved a pedestrian ahead of you and had them do this? Seems kind of rude. Well, actually, it's the complete opposite. This means thank you. This means yes. This means no. To get a waiter to bring your bill, rather than yelling across the restaurant, you simply catch his eye and do this. This. This one means you better behave, often used for reprimanding children because it kind of imitates a spanking. This means money. It's like you're holding a wad of money, and it's perceived to be that the person that maybe they're indicating towards is perceived to be rich. This one means you're stingy or miserly. So when you see a Mexican person making gestures like these or many other ones, don't make any assumptions that you think you know what they are saying. There are a lot of YouTube videos on this subject if you're really interested in it, and you can find out what many more of the common Mexican hand gestures mean. This one is a really important one because, well, we all gotta go sometimes. Men, don't be fooled by the M on the door. M is for mujer, which means woman. The one with the H is the one you're looking for, because that means hombre. And on the topic of public washrooms, often you need to pay a little bit of coin before entering. It's usually 5 pesos or so, so be sure to have change with you if you're heading out in public for the day. Ladies, it would be wise to always carry a little bit of toilet paper in your purse when you're out for the day. Sometimes the attendant will give you some in exchange for your pesos, but might be only 3 squares if you know what I mean. Or if she doesn't give you any, often the rolls in public washrooms are bare. When you're on the road, you will often notice that when traffic starts to slow, a lot of drivers throw on their hazard lights. Pay attention to these. It's usually a signal that they're slowing down quickly. It could be for traffic, a speed bump, a police checkpoint, or just turning off the highway. And if you're driving in Mexico, be sure to use your hazard flashers if you have to come to a quick stop. This warns the drivers behind you of the impending stop. If an oncoming vehicle flashes their headlights at you, it could mean that you're approaching a narrow bridge or a narrow spot in the road. The first person who flashes has the right of way, and the second person has to yield. This is just a couple of little tips about traffic. I mean, there could be a whole video about driving in Mexico. I personally don't, so I have no personal knowledge about that. The Spanish word for now is ahora. So the logical assumption would be that ahorita would mean right now. In some cases, that's exactly what it means. However, it does have a second meaning, which can be a vague reference to some point in the future. Could be 10 minutes, an hour, a week, whenever they get around to it, or not at all. Remember back when I was talking about it being hard for a Mexican person to say no? Well, ahorita might be a polite way of saying no. Ahorita has other meanings with respect to time, but that's for a more advanced Spanish lesson. For the purposes of this video, if you get an ahorita and you hear nothing further, chances are it was a soft no. This custom again comes from the Mexican way of not being confrontational and always being courteous. When you finish your meal in your home country, chances are your waiter will say, would you like anything else? And you say no, and then they bring you your bill. In Mexico, however, your waiter will not bring you your bill until you specifically ask for it, either in words or by the gesture that I talked about earlier, number 3. The reason behind this is that it would be rude to rush you out of the restaurant after your meal. It's as simple as that. Now, of course, in bigger tourist areas, this might not be the case because the waiters know that short-term visitors may not be aware of the custom and will be expecting the waiter to automatically bring the bill. However, if you find yourself waiting for what you think is a long time for your bill, just ask for it. You may have been told, or to bring Mexican pesos when you come to Mexico, or you may wait until you get here and withdraw them from an ATM. Typically, small stores and restaurants or taxi drivers do not have change available for the big bills like the 500 or 1,000 pesos. If possible, when you're getting pesos from your home bank before you come, ask them if there's any way they can give you smaller bills. When I order pesos in my home bank in Canada, now I use a credit union, I'm able to specify that I don't want anything over a 200 peso bill, and they accommodate that. If, however, your bank won't do that, or you're withdrawing pesos from an ATM in Mexico, you're going to end up with 500 peso bills. So now what? If you're making purchases, I would say over 350 or so, you're probably fine to use a 500. However, if your purchase is like 30 pesos and you're expecting to pay with a 500, chances are the vendor is not going to be able to make change. My suggestion is to go into a local bank with your large bills and ask if they can give you change. Puedes darme cambio is what you would say. After, of course, saying some sort of greeting like good morning, hello, buenos dias, buenas tardes, whatever the case may be. Most banks will give you small bills up to a certain amount. The bank I go to will change up to 3,000 pesos for me at a time. So if you're a couple, you could possibly go separately and each of you change 3,000 pesos. Just be aware that sometimes the bank might not have change either, and you might have to come back on another day. You may be surprised at how entrepreneurial Mexican people are. Businesses are run out of houses in local neighborhoods, off the back of a bicycle, even walking on the beach. There aren't as many government regulations here restricting small business. Everything from ice cream, tamales, knife sharpening services, household items, fruits and vegetables, gardening services, and so on, I have been peddled on my street in some vehicle or another. I can get these items or services just by stepping out my front door when the appropriate whistle blows or I hear the shouting of what the service being provided is. Sitting on any public beach and you can buy anything from food to jewelry, clothing, entertainment without ever even leaving your lounge chair. Just remember that these people are running businesses the same as any other business person, and they should be treated as such with courtesy and respect. A simple no gracias should be sufficient if you're not interested. And while some vendors can be a bit more aggressive, just hold your ground and politely confirm you are not interested, and usually they'll move on. Hopefully you've noticed a recurring theme throughout this video that Mexican people are very courteous and respectful. Loud complaining or anger here does not get you anywhere. In fact, your status in the eyes of the Mexican people will be greatly diminished. Of course, they would never say that to you. Treating anyone with disrespect here is greatly frowned upon. So leave your entitlement at home, bring your humility and your patience, and you will have a much better experience. I just want to say here that in no way am I putting anyone down in explaining these differences in cultures. There's no right or wrong way to do this. There is a difference in the way each group sees or does things. That's all I'm trying to explain here. Well, that's it. I hope you found this video helping in adjusting to your new life in Mexico. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of my future videos about life in Mexico. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.